Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
And welcome back.
Yes, this is our first attempt at making a normal video on the computer, but it's the first place we've actually had a decent signal, and hopefully this will not take 12 hours to upload.
Yes, we're hoping that. We're very, very hopeful right now.
So you might be saying, oh, what are you going to talk about when you got the Merriam-Webster dictionary up, and the word is psychopath. So what is the definition of a psychopath? Well, a person having egocentric, antisocial personality marked by a lack of remorse for one's actions, an absence of empathy for others, and often criminal tendencies. Oh, wow. Well, why are we talking about that? Well, because they're at it again, and we know that often there's things that go on just for louche, and I probably should have brought up the definition of louche, and Cindy can elaborate on that.
Oh my gosh, they use our fear as food to feed on. So louche is kind of a human emotion that we put out there so entities can feed on it. Then they're feeding on our louche.
Feeding on our fear. And many times, yes, there is rumors of war, as we know from the biblical term, but then nothing happens. But then there's also has been wars. There's been wars nonstop. And in fact, the United States has been at war for more than 90% of the time it's been a country. Talk about a lot of louche created there. As we see the Russian military buildup continues near the Ukrainian border, day number 3. Video of military vehicles, tanks today reported from the city of Krasnodar. Isn't it fascinating how, a certain date can come and go, and it's like we get a new boogeyman, I'm thinking, of course, of January, 20th, when we had that change, the apparent change that some say is not a change, and it's all of this is divisive tactics. It's all divide and conquer through fear and through keeping us not only policing each other, but at each other's, throats, so to speak, all the time.
Well, yeah, they make people feel, well, I'm right. No, I'm right. And they separate families, and they always have each side of the aisle for somebody to stand on, no matter what the conversation is about.
So we asked the guys this morning, and we said, is this another louche event as you look at more and more hardware coming in? The one thing I would say that when we see Russia moving hardware, often they don't bluff. They don't bluff. They're not one of those bluffers if it was a poker game, so to speak. So we asked the guides, is this going to be another just non-event, just a louche event? As you see here, Russian tanks move towards Ukraine. Earth braces for a possibility of WW3 eruption. Last thing anybody would want, of course, any sane individual, unless you were a psychopath. And, this is the case, is when we look at the leadership of across the globe, it seems like the vast majority of those in power would really fit that definition.
That's right. And when I did ask the guides about this, they told me there's a 30 to 40% chance something could come of this. And actually, they don't want anything to come of this, because if it does, it's going to be a really big deal.
Yeah, we've wondered what the trigger will be. There's so many different triggering points, Iran, Syria. We looked at Venezuela as a possible trigger before. It could be anywhere, Libya, as we've talked about as well. It's just a mess out there. And of course, this is all, it's a symphony, as we've also talked about. As you see here, heavy fighting reported in the Donbass region. You see rising smoke in the video. And of course, the people that are suffering are always, the average people. Think about the refugees across this globe. It's crazy, the amount of people that are refugees across the globe, the amount of money that's spent on the war machine, when, we definitely have food supply problems, and we know a lot of that is artificially flavored as well. All sorts of strange things in there, artificial dyes, and We were talking to clients yesterday, and inflammation, and just to get off a little bit on a tangent, but there's so many things that don't really need to be in our food that are in our food, but they trigger inflammation. There's so many things that we don't need in this world that cause inflammation to the world itself. As we've equated that as above, so below. And of course, this is exactly that type of thing. When we're at a time when we should be building massive projects of greenhouses, massive greenhouses all over in many different areas to feed the world, because, we could. There's no reason we couldn't.
Well, exactly. The thing is if we put in the same amount of money, time, and effort into building the greenhouses and building food and just building houses for people and caring about people, this world, we wouldn't really recognize it. It would be such a heavenly place to live.
It could be, and it could change so quickly. It's just a matter of people waking up and saying, oh, come on, I don't buy your BS. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. As you see here, Unwavering Support for Ukraine by JB, who is nothing but a shade, just a puppet on a string.
Absolutely, very much a puppet on a string. With him, there's the only thing that's left is the fiber that covers the outside of his puppet body.
And when they see the Philippines cries foul over the fine dining ware country, militia ships near Whitsun Reef. And we had talked about hundreds of fishing vessels off the coast of South America as well, Ecuador. And, it was acknowledged that a lot of these quote-unquote fishing vessels are actually militia, and they're outfitted for military reasons. And what an amazing cover, what a great cover, to have just what looks to be fishing boats, but they could actually be used in perhaps an invasion.
Yes, and multi-use things again.
And as well as just, fishing off the coast of other countries. And this time where, everybody is thinking food, and if you follow like Adapt 2030 or Christian Ice Age Farmer, the food issues are coming to the forefront, and it's getting to be something that even people in the mainstream are really recognizing as this, artificially flavored perfect storm comes rolling through. And here we see this is about the pipeline that's going on. And again, while the people at the very top may understand the whole thing, and maybe not everybody really understands the whole thing, but understands bigger portions of it, as you go on down the line, people don't have the bigger picture. So there are definitely forces within each country that are very patriotic to their country and just want to see their country survive. And again, that some of that will fit into the definition of psychopathic behavior when it's at the suffering of others. And here you see unidentified submarines emerge near Nord Stream 2 pipelines. So there's definitely this battle of the worlds going on, as what has been, since the breakup of the USSR, an apparent single superpower, and the inevitable rise of a new superpower, which of course leads us to this, which, this is the battle of the ages, right? Godzilla versus Kong.
Always and forever.
Well, this is interesting. And so Michael McCaffrey is a writer and cultural critic who lives in LA. His work can be read at RT Counterpunch and his website. And he gets into this, and he sees in this movie, it's really a battle of East and West. And what he says is his take on the whole movie, and this has been redone several times, is that Kong is representing the United States and Godzilla is representing China. And it's interesting because, boy, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Because Kong fights along with the U.S. Navy. I think there's metaphors here. I think there's metaphors here for when we get introduced and we have disclosure with the ET presence, because we're going to have our own King Kongs and Godzillas on different sides fighting. And I've said this to Cindy. I've said, what do you really think is the chance of us seeing, the ancient battles of the quote-unquote gods? And of course, none of them are gods, ETs, interdimensionals, over our heads in our lifetime.
The chances are very, very good that we're going to see that in our lifetime. Now, are they going to try to disguise it to be something else? I think they're already they already have us, they already have a lot of things being disguised right now. But soon we're going to be able to see more and more and more, and they're not going to be able to cover it up. That's, I strongly feel, going to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah. So isn't it interesting how all the symbolism's in there, and Hollywood is loaded with symbolism, of course. And so, in this, and I hope you guys aren't rushing out to the theater to see this, and I'm going to blow it for you. One of the final, or I think it is the final battle, he says, takes place over Hong Kong, which, of course, was under Western rule, the UK, and then was basically handed back over to China. And that was a very fitting thing. And then he says there's another twist in there, where apparently, perhaps at the end, they stop their fighting to face a new threat, which is Mecha Godzilla, right? Or the AI threat.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really a big threat, the AI right now.
It's all fascinating, and it's kind of fun to look at the movies and say, oh, what are they telling us now?
I know, it is fun. I like it.
It is. So let's send out our prayers for peace, that the people of the world will wake up, that the people that are, manning the ships, the planes, the guns, will recognize, hey, you know what? I thought I was doing something good and right and something I should be proud of. And maybe I'm not, maybe the thing to be proud of is saying enough, we don't buy this. And we recognize that what we have at the top levels are nothing but this word.
I know, and that's very, very dangerous to have that in control.
Yes. Thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you. Anybody needs to set up an appointment, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. Keep positive, but be aware. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.